Chelsea 3, Liverpool 1. Chelsea in 5th and final Champions League spot. Janusz Michallik, Miguel Echegaray, Mark Donaldson to discuss what we saw today. And LME, let's start with you. When you know you've got to go to Newcastle in 2 of your last 3 and Forest, and you've got Manchester United as well, you know you kind of have to win. The problem is for Chelsea, it's Liverpool, the champions, who didn't rotate as many as you would think. That was a statement win for Chelsea today. How did they do it?
They did a very good job. And I think a key factor, I will talk about it collectively, but I have to really enforce the fact that Roméo Lavia is a massive part of this Chelsea philosophy. He allowed Moises Caicedo to go forward and do his thing. Enzo Fernandez, who opened the scoring, of course, he looked at the vision and started that first play that gave to Cole Palmer, who fed, of course, Pedro Neto for that opener. But his involvement, and I don't like to usually start with an individual player, but the Belgian midfielder is exactly what Enzo Maresca needs for the entire season in order for Chelsea to move. Because let's be honest, Chelsea, who is obviously the youngest squad in the Premier League as well, can also be erratic, can also lose possession in important moments. And to your point, as they face the Premier League champions, we'll talk about them in a second, they need some stability specifically in that midfield. And Roméo Lavia is all of that and then some. It's a tremendous thing for him to be part of it. So that's really how Chelsea really just invigorated themselves and won, because they were relying on the stability of somebody like him. Obviously, it wasn't just about him, but it was very important to have an architect in that midfield to feed Chelsea and win it. Liverpool, you were on holiday today, I think. And yes, you're right. They didn't make that many rotations, but they did make rotations in the important area of the field, which is the midfield. And I think that was really the calamity there. Salah was very quality. I think Darwin Núñez is ready, packing his bags, ready to go to another club in the summer. But Chelsea took full advantage, 3 points for the Blues. And, of course, a very important 3 points as they look to cement the Champions League spot for next season.
Massive 3 points. Janusz, Chelsea had to win that today. I've mentioned the games they've got coming up. There's a lot of work still to be done. Their chutzpah has been questioned by many. Did we see a kind of swagger today from Chelsea that we saw when they were firing on a lot of cylinders and had momentum earlier this season?
I don't know chutzpah and swagger, but, for me, Chelsea has made a progression. They really have. I mean, they've had their issues for the most part. But again, it's worth reminding where they started ahead of the season, how much we've talked about how young they were, how terrible they were in terms of management, how much money they spent. They had the 40, 50 players, where they're going to train, who's going to train where, and all of that. And I think throughout, Enzo Maresca has shown progression in terms of how the team looks, how the team plays, and their identity, right? We saw that today. I mean, I think they're, for the most part, with all the injuries and changes, defensively sound. They are, I think, third best defensive side in the league, right? I think in terms of keeping width, they've done a pretty good job, and they've done a better job than some would say in terms of scoring goals as well. Nico Jackson was off a little bit. That's why we kind of questioned Chelsea and Nico Jackson as well. Cole Palmer has been off as well in terms of scoring. So you can understand why there were times in recent weeks where we could have maybe asked questions because they were falling off. But, last few months, they've been part of that top 4. And I think that they're doing a very good job in terms of where they were, where they are, and perhaps where they're going.
LME, in all sports how important momentum is, certainly in the United States, where it's get into the playoffs and then see where it takes you. For Chelsea to now have this momentum and for Cole Palmer to snap an 18-game goalless streak, what does that say about them between now and the end of the season and these last 3 games? Because the 3 of us and others on ESPN FC had kind of written them off as maybe the 6th or 7th in the race for the top 5. Are they now one of the favourites ahead of Villa and Forest to get that final Champions League spot?
Well, you would have to think so just because of what's going on. I mean, let's also remember that in all of April, they didn't lose a game. So there is a sense of consistency. And, Janusz mentioned Cole Palmer, who finally scored today for the first time since January. Also, their history against Liverpool has never been good. So getting a win, regardless of Liverpool's situation, is important. But to answer your question, this is real tight. Janusz mentioned it in the previous video. This is a bit of because it's not just about momentum, but it's also about who you have left. So now Chelsea have to play Newcastle, who are also fighting, who also just got a draw today, right? Then they also have to face, I believe, in the last game of the season to Nottingham Forest, who are also really trying to do something. So this is going to be a really important thing. Now, here's where the money of Chelsea and the way they handle their massive squad comes in, because they really kind of don't even have to worry about their their place in the Conference League. Obviously, they've got 1 foot in the final in that one, but they don't really have to, gamble with their key players in that competition. So once again, all focus on the Premier League. But I think the key thing here is who Chelsea have remaining. They needed to win today. They got that done. But Newcastle, that's a massive game. And in the final day of the season, in between the other matches, they have to play 4. So there's still a bit to play for. But to answer your question, yes, I do see them eventually finishing in the top 5 in the Champions League spot.
Given the squad that LME has just spoken about, the depth that Chelsea have, Janusz, some teams going into the Champions League, it's a case of, we need to buy a few players here because we don't really have that many. For Chelsea, do they already have a Champions League ready squad, not to compete and to win it, but to play in it? Because we've seen they rested a few of the players in the group stages of the Conference League. Cole Palmer didn't even start kicking a ball in that competition until after Christmas. So are they, out of Villa and out of the other team, Nottingham Forest, involved in this kind of 3-for-1 spot if Newcastle are getting it? Are Chelsea the best equipped squad-wise for Champions League next season?
Well, I mean, one thing, we've talked about how young they are. That also means that they can quickly develop. I mean, look at some of the players that they have, their development, and even somebody like Enzo Fernandez, right? I mean, he's a World Cup winner and all, but he hadn't had a great season, one that everybody, at least first half of the season, he's playing a little bit better. By the way, probably will never score an easier goal than he scored today against a quality side like Liverpool. But if you look at Madueke, Cole Palmer, Jadon Sancho's coming good as of late as well. All these young players, right? I think you can develop them. So you have still plenty of time to kind of to grow on that. But I think I know where you're going with this, because it seems to me that they may need maybe 2 or 3 very, very experienced players where that development of young players can take place a little bit easier. Even during the game today, like someone like Van Dijk was mentioned, and even Mo Salah. I think it's always easier to know that you have a rock in the back and in the midfield. And LME has talked about the midfield, and I think he's right, because even never mind Lavia playing well, but I think Caicedo in that role on the right hand side fits them, right? Because he comes inside. Many managers like to do that. We know that Maresca likes to do that as well. So that solves the problem of who you keep out. And if somebody needs to go out, you have a natural player that can come into that midfield. So I think Chelsea could be a surprise if you can call him that, because it's a historic club.
Yeah, they need a world-class goalkeeper, I think. That's just the only thing I'll add. Robert Sanchez has done better, right?
He was the backup at Brighton when they got him.
But if you're talking about the Champions League and trying to really compete and also be you need a world-class goalkeeper. He's not that. They need that
central defender for sure, still
a center back as well.
Defender, and I think somebody obviously to challenge Nico Jackson, right? I mean, they need another striker and a winger, for rotation, for all those competitions as well. I mean, these days you can have 2 megastars vying for place in the starting lineup. That's not unusual, especially if you want to compete on all levels and all competitions.
Janusz, Enzo Maresca, we can have a deeper dive into how he's done come the end of the season when we see where Chelsea have finished. But right now, from where they were and the expectation level, which was low at the start of the season, to where he took them, and at one stage it was like the Chelsea challenge for the title, then the blip when Cole Palmer didn't score since January. Bigger picture, before we know where they're going to end up, what kind of season has Enzo Maresca had as Chelsea boss?
Well, I know, right now I would call it a solid B, right? I mean, obviously, once they're here, they want to make it to the Champions League. I think, it's a good possibility on their own. I mean, if Premier League gets the sixth spot, then that's going to be a little bit easier, I suppose. But you can't count on that. But I think, as I've said, develop a team from a chaos into stability, and that is important because I didn't see it. I remember being critical early in the season, as everyone I think were, simply because we've been used to Chelsea winning all the time, right? We've been used to Chelsea when things didn't go well, letting go of managers and bringing somebody else that almost immediately got trophies in. And we know those times are gone. It's a different Chelsea. Even now, there's a lot of talk about even more young players coming in, which is not something that we feel they need at the moment, but for the future, I suppose. So I think you got to give them a solid B, and that may even be B+ if they make it to the Champions League.
Just clarify the Champions League spots. There are 5 through the league. The 6th goes to either Spurs or Manchester United if they win the Europa League. So a 6th place finish, no matter what, unless Arsenal had won the Champions League, 6th place will get you into the Europa League. It will not get you into
my bad.
Champions League. Yeah, no problem. Just to clarify, because it is pretty complicated. And then you've got the FA Cup final as well, because Crystal Palace could win that. And 8th place might get into the Conference League playoff. But as far as the league is concerned, the top 5, and right now it's Liverpool, it's Arsenal, it's Manchester City, it's probably Newcastle, and right now Chelsea seem to be the favourites. A good 3-1 win for them today against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge.